am absolutely reeling right now. Like, we are starting the second mid-spiral because I cannot even begin to process the sheer, unadulterated audacity of a grown man.
Oh, I am right there with you. I am completely unwell.
Right, like a supposedly mature adult man who has literally been married before, lived out in the world, just fully ghosting a woman at his own birthday party. I want you to picture this.
It is a masterclass in emotional avoidance, honestly.
It really is. You drive 5 hours across state lines to celebrate this man. You show up and he just evaporates into the Minnesota air. I am unwell. I am physically, spiritually, and emotionally unwell just thinking about it.
You are unwell, I am unwell, and frankly, the entire Plath family is severely clinically unwell.
Literally.
What we just watched is, I genuinely believe if you look up reality TV delusion in the DSM-5, there shouldn't even be text. It should just be a full-page, high-definition, glossy photo of Ethan sprinting into the woods.
Sprinting with his little thermos.
Yes. Clutching his emotional support thermos, completely incapable of handling a single, solitary, uncomfortable human emotion.
It is like he short-circuits the second reality steps into the room. His brain just flashes a 404 error, and his legs completely take over. But listen, before we completely lose our minds and burn down the studio over Ethan's impromptu escape room antics, we need to go ahead and tell you what drinks we have tonight.
We absolutely do, because we need them.
Because, babes, it's basically a tradition now. You know we cannot talk about this level of generational family chaos unmedicated. We need supplies.
And by medicated, we mean heavily, dangerously, aggressively chilled.
Yeah.
We're talking sub-zero coping mechanisms.
Exactly. So, babes, the frozen wine slushies are on deck tonight, and yes, it is rosé.
Highly expensive rosé, I might add.
We spare no expense for the Snark squad, and yes, we added mango puree, and yes, we added strawberry puree. And babes, these are absolutely amazing. I am currently holding a literal adult Slurpee in a giant goblet.
It is aggressively pink. It perfectly matches the current level of hysteria in this room.
It might be the only thing keeping me tethered to this earth right now, honestly.
What is genuinely fascinating to me is the sheer psychological joy that comes from a frozen beverage. Let's really analyze this for a second. Is there some unspoken universal rule against freezing all wine in the summer?
There shouldn't be.
Right, because I feel like we have inadvertently unlocked a secret to human happiness that the rest of the world is just stubbornly missing out on. Why do we ever force ourselves to drink room temperature or slightly chilled liquids when we could be drinking absolute brain-freezing frost?
There are absolutely no rules in summer. Summer is a lawless wasteland, and if it's a liquid, it is going in the Ninja slush machine. I do not care what it is.
You really don't. You have a sickness.
I do. Water, slushed. Iced coffee, slushed. This deeply expensive rosé, absolutely slushed. I feel like every single liquid we consume these days somehow ends up in that machine. It is a delicious, necessary sickness.
It is a full-blown lifestyle at this point. I walked into your kitchen last Tuesday, and you were eyeing a carton of unsweetened oat milk with a very dangerous experimental glint in your eye.
I just wanted to see what the texture would be.
I had to physically step between you and the appliance.
Yeah.
We have to draw the line somewhere, or else we're going to start slushing things like chicken broth or salad dressing. We cannot lose our grip on reality.
Okay, hold on. Savory slushies could actually be the next big culinary trend in Michelin star restaurants. You don't know. A gazpacho slush, I see the vision.
Please stop.
But seriously, what is the most chaotic, ill-advised drink combination we've created so far? Because I think the rosé, mango, and strawberry might actually be the winner. It's giving tropical vacation in Ibiza, but also, like, I desperately need to numb the pain of watching reality television on a Tuesday night.
I completely disagree. I think the most unhinged, ill-advised concoction was when we tried to slush that incredibly dry, cheap, bottom-shelf Cabernet with frozen blueberries. Do you remember that?
Oh my gosh, the purple teeth. I had entirely blocked that trauma from my memory.
It didn't slush. It just turned into this gritty, dark, purple, tannic mud. It was like drinking alcoholic soil. It stained our teeth for 2 business days. We looked like we had just survived a very aggressive, very violent grape stomping accident.
We were recording, and I couldn't even look across the mics at you without wheezing because you looked like a Victorian ghost who had been drinking ink. It was horrifying.
It was a low point.
But speaking of ill-advised decisions, trauma, and sheer physical misery, we tried something new this morning before work.
Right.
We have thoughts. We have so many complex, aggressive thoughts.
We made a severe, possibly unforgivable miscalculation regarding the limitations of the human spirit.
Babes, we met up with a local running club, at 5 a.m.
Horrific.
Let me just repeat that for the people in the back who might be hard of hearing. 5 a.m. in the pitch black. The sun was not even a rumor yet. The birds were still in deep REM sleep. The streetlights were still on, buzzing that weird orange color.
It was dark. It was aggressively, hostilely early. The air had that weird, damp, pre-dawn chill that doesn't just hit your skin, it just bypasses the epidermis and seeps right into your marrow.
Yes.
It is a time of day that humans were simply not biologically designed to be conscious during, let alone performing cardiovascular feats.
I absolutely hated it. I hated every single microscopic second of it. I hated my alarm clock for betraying me. I hated my expensive running shoes for not magically doing the work for me. I hated the pavement. I hated the concept of gravity.
I'm cool about it, too.
Why is anyone willingly waking up before the sun to suffer? Explain the psychology to me. And the people, like the actual members of this running club, babes, they are bizarrely, terrifyingly upbeat. Who smiles while doing high-impact cardiovascular exercise in the dark?
It's a completely different subspecies of human.
They were doing dynamic lunges and chatting about their marathon personal records, and I was just standing there in the back trying to remember how to expand my lungs without tasting copper in the back of my throat.
What's actually fascinating here is the absolute crushing struggle of pretending to be athletic when you are fundamentally, at your core, not. We were out there in our matching, highly curated athleisure.
Which we bought specifically for this.
Exactly. Assuming the sheer aesthetic power of monochromatic matching sets would physically carry us through the miles. And we were just getting lapped by people who look like they run for fun. Who does that?
Not me. I was fighting for my life on mile 1. I think I saw my ancestors waving at me from the light. I explicitly stated to you mid-stride, while gasping for air, that I absolutely hate this. This is the worst decision we have ever made, and I am never doing it again as long as I live.
And this is where it gets really interesting. This is the plot twist.
Yeah.
Because I shockingly kind of liked it.
I'm going to throw this entire goblet of pink slush at your face. Do not lie to the people.
I know. Just listen to me. Hear me out. Put the slushy down. Yes, the mid-run suffering was profound. I thought my lungs were going to spontaneously collapse. I questioned every single life choice.
As you should have.
But the post-run energy, when we finally stopped moving and the sun was just starting to crest over the horizon, I felt this massive, overwhelming endorphin rush. I felt invincible. Like I could effortlessly conquer a very difficult, deeply impacted, multi-rooted molar extraction. The chemical energy boost was entirely real.
You are delusional. You have been completely brainwashed by big cardio. They got to you. The only energy boost I felt was the desperate, frantic adrenaline of knowing I could finally walk back to my car, lock the doors, and turn on my heated seat.
You are so dramatic.
Will we ever subject ourselves to this madness again? I am a firm, unyielding no.
Yeah.
A hard, non-negotiable boundary has been set.
I might actually go back next Tuesday.
I am calling HR.
Don't look at me like that. I'm just saying it set a very productive tone for the rest of the day,
Right.
which I desperately needed considering the absolute unmitigated madness that happened at the clinic later this afternoon.
Yes. Oh my gosh, yes, babes, the lunch break story. You have to tell them this right now, because when you texted me this from your office, I shrieked out loud in my own operatory. My dental assistant thought I had dropped a mirror down a patient's throat.
Okay, so you know the daily reality of running a dental practice.
Yeah.
It is basically just controlled, highly sterilized chaos, right?
Great wheeze.
Just managing tiny crises while pretending to be completely calm. So today, I walk into the staff break room at lunch. I'm just looking for my sad little kale salad, minding my own business. And I find our front desk receptionist, who is lovely, wonderful with patients, but sometimes a little absent-minded, standing completely over the Ninja blender.
Which you brought to work.
Because, yes, I brought a spare blender to work. Do not judge me.
I would never judge that. It's essential medical equipment at this point. It should be a tax write-off.
Thank you. So she's standing over the blender, and she is holding a giant industrial-sized tub of alginate impression material.
No, okay, wait. For anyone listening who doesn't work in dentistry, you have to explain what alginate is so they grasp the sheer horror of this moment.
Right. Alginate is this ultra-fine powdery substance that we mix with water to make those gooey, thick pink molds of your teeth. You know, the ones that smell weirdly like artificial mint or fruit and make you want to gag when they're pushed up into your palate?
Yes, the gag-inducing pink goop.
It sets into a dense, rubbery solid in literally about 60 seconds. It is absolutely, unequivocally not edible.
Yeah.
But in its raw powder form, in the specific tub we order, it looks exactly like a very fancy, highly processed, strawberry-flavored whey protein powder.
And she was going to drink it.
She had the plastic scooper in her hand. She was actively about to dump 2 heaping scoops of rapid set dental impression material into her unsweetened almond milk.
I am sweating just imagining the liability.
I had to yell across the break room like I was diving on a grenade. I screamed, "Stop! Do not blend that. That will literally cast a perfect, unyielding rubber mold of your esophagus and stomach lining."
What did she do?
She just stopped, completely frozen, holding the scoop in the air, and looked at me so confused. She said, "But doctor, it smells like minty strawberry. I thought you brought in a new pre-workout."
I am screaming. Can you imagine the ambulance ride? The paramedics rolling her into the ER and the triage nurse is like, "What's the issue?" And they have to say, "Well, her vitals are fine, but she seems to have manufactured a perfect 1-to-1 scale rubber replica of her own digestive tract."
The bizarre, unhinged things that staff and patients do when they think the dentists aren't looking is a reality show in itself. We should be filming our clinics.
It really is. It raises some very important structural questions about perhaps labeling our hazardous dental supplies a bit more aggressively, which ironically brings us perfectly to our new master plan.
Yes, it does.
Babes, we have a new 10-year goal. We've been talking about this all week. In 10 years, we want to leave our respective practices and open a brand new dental practice together.
It is happening. We are putting it out into the universe. We are manifesting the dental empire, the Snark Dental Group.
We've been obsessing over the aesthetic of the suture office all day long instead of charting our notes. Because if we are going to be our own bosses, if we are going to take on that level of overhead and stress, we're doing it entirely our way. We are throwing out the traditional clinical playbook.
Exactly. I've already drafted a list of demands for ridiculous, completely over-the-top amenities. Number 1, I want a commercial-grade frozen rosé slushy machine right there in the waiting room.
Yes.
We are getting rid of the stale, burnt Keurig coffee and the German-fested 3-year-old magazines. You come in for your biannual cleaning, you sit down, you get a premium slushy. It lowers dental anxiety. It's practically medicinal.
I support this holistic approach to medicine, and I am demanding velvet dental chairs. I don't want that weird, sticky synthetic leather that makes a terrible noise when you sit up. I want deep, rich, emerald green velvet dental chairs.
The infection control protocols on velvet chairs are going to be an absolute nightmare.
I don't care. I want the lighting to be intensely flattering. None of those harsh, aggressive fluorescent lights that bounce off the sterile white walls and make you look like a jaundiced corpse while you're getting a cavity filled. I want it to feel like a moody, high-end speakeasy that just coincidentally happens to perform root canals and place crowns.
I respect the vision.
Yeah.
And we've already divided the labor perfectly. I will handle the entire business side. I'll do the analytics, the payroll, the supply ordering. I will personally ensure nobody is drinking the alginate.
Thank goodness.
And you are going to handle the overarching aesthetic and the patient comfort side because you are, at your core, the emotional support dentist.
I absolutely am. That is my calling. I will hold their hands while you administer the local anesthetic. I will curate the perfect vibe-heavy Spotify playlist for their third molar extractions. I will make sure the emerald velvet is freshly fluffed and sanitized.
Solid division of labor.
I have to ask you, though, objectively, is this a brilliant, disruptive, boss-move business plan? Or is this just sheer, unadulterated, future business owner delusion born out of exhaustion?
Oh, it is 100% pure delusion right now.
Yeah.
We are flying completely blind on the wings of hubris.
Yeah.
But let's be honest, all great world-changing empires start with a slightly delusional vision. You have to be a little detached from reality to innovate.
That is so true. Okay, speaking of being detached from reality, enough about our future empire. Let's get into Plathville. Because if there's anyone on this planet who deeply, intimately understands sheer delusion and living in a manufactured reality, it is this family.
This week's footage was, I don't even have the words. It was a cinematic masterpiece of cringe.
It really was. We need to start in Cairo. Because we have Barry. Barry is entering his bizarre Riz era, and he is going on a blind date with a woman named Jonah. Now, Jonah is a 46-year-old divorced realtor. And we get this incredible, agonizingly long sequence of Barry in his closet trying to pick out an outfit.
You can show the producers are behind the camera entirely trolling him.
Fully trolling him.
We have to talk about the music they scored this scene with. It was this bizarre, royalty-free, copyright-safe hip-hop beat. I read a recap online that brilliantly described it as a big pimpin' knockoff that sounded like an elderly Christian Sasquatch lover goes on a date.
That is painfully accurate.
It was so wildly, aggressively out of place for Barry. This is a man who moves through the world with the physical rigidity of an antique Victorian grandfather clock. He has the swagger of a wooden plank, and they're playing a club beat over him choosing a shirt.
And the shirt he chooses. Babes, this shirt, he puts on this polo shirt, and it was excruciating. It was fighting for its literal life across his chest. The buttons were screaming.
They were holding on by a thread.
He looks right at the camera and says, with complete earnestness, that he wants to show off the 4 years of intensive work he's put into his upper body. But all it did was highlight his incredibly bizarre body shape, which is just a perfect, severe, upside-down triangle.
Because he does absolutely 0 leg days at whatever fundamentalist CrossFit gym he goes to. It is all chest, all biceps, all traps, 0 core, and absolutely no lower body development. He looks like Johnny Bravo.
He does.
He looks like a cartoon character who swallowed a heavy iron anvil and it just got stuck in his ribcage.
It's so distracting. But the physical comedy of the shirt is nothing compared to the verbal horror that happens next. The producer behind the camera asks him if he has any pickup lines prepared for this date, and I physically recoiled. I wanted to fold in on myself, crawl out of my own skin, and go hide in the crawl space under my house.
It was chilling.
He looks dead-eyed into the lens and says, "Hey, baby, your hair sure does flow. Come float my way, baby. I want to go with the flow."
It was like watching a newly arrived alien life form try to mimic human flirtation based entirely on catching a broadcast of a 1970s Herbal Essence shampoo commercial.
Yeah.
He was just awkwardly riffing on the word flow like a terrible student in the level 1 improv class who refuses to say yes and.
It was so bad.
But what's worse, what is fundamentally more terrifying, is his backup plan. His actual stated premeditated backup plan, if the conversation stalls on this first date, is to use his Donald Duck voice.
No, I cannot. I refuse to accept that as reality. If I'm sitting across from a 57-year-old man on a first date over a nice cup of coffee and the conversation hits a lull and he suddenly starts quacking at me like an unhinged Disney character, I am calling the local authorities.
Immediate 911 call.
I am not even making an excuse. I am faking a severe medical emergency. I am throwing my coffee in my own face and screaming. I am leaving the premises. Why Donald Duck? Why not something charming? Why an angry, unintelligible duck?
Because he has the social-emotional development of an 8-year-old boy. It's actually astonishing that his children couldn't intervene and help him. There was that scene where he asked Micah, Moriah, and Ethan for dating advice at a bar. And what happens? Ethan just grunts at him and stares at a napkin. Which, to be fair, is Ethan's primary and only mode of communication, but still. Moriah just giggles. Barry went out into the dating pool, completely unequipped for the modern world. He is bringing a Donald Duck impression to a gunfight.
But then the date itself actually happens. He travels to Tallahassee. He's standing outside this cafe, and Jonah walks up. And Bibbs, she rolls up in a sleek, white BMW convertible.
She was a whole vibe.
She is deeply athletic. She is blonde. She is a successful working realtor. She's been divorced for 8 or 9 years, and she has 4 kids. She is a full, complex adult woman.
She was a lot of looks. She had that very specific, high-octane, panhandle, Florida real estate agent energy. You know, exactly the type. The blowout, the statement jewelry, the clipboard. And we do have to address the elephant in the room here, the massive age gap and the aesthetics of it all.
We absolutely do.
He is 57 years old. She is 46. But I was scrolling through Reddit during the commercial breaks, and there was some serious heavy shade being thrown at Jonah. And honestly, I kind of see it. People were saying her styling and her incredibly heavy makeup were severely aging her. They were saying she looked like a hard 46 or maybe closer to 52.
I saw those threads. The internet was being so incredibly mean to this woman. They were essentially accusing her of lying about her age on national television. But honestly, I just think it was the heavy foundation and the slightly dated styling. She is fit, she is gorgeous, she seems financially independent, and honestly, she is way, way out of Barry's league in every conceivable metric.
Completely out of his league.
But when she sat down and stated she was 46, Barry hit her with, "Wow, you look great for 46. You look really young." And I'm just screaming at the TV, "Barry, she's 11 years younger than you. You are pushing 60. Do not act like she just wheeled herself into the cafe on a tennis ball walker."
Exactly. It's that subtle patriarchal condescension that he just can't shake. And the conversation right off the bat was so tense and awkward. She casually asked him how many kids he has. She said she has 4. A totally normal first date icebreaker for people in their 40s and 50s.
Very normal.
She asks him, and instead of just answering like a human being, he gives this bizarrely evasive, cryptic riddle. He says, more than 4, not double digits, but maxing at the single digits.
Just say 9, Barry. You have 9 living children. Why are we speaking in complex math riddles on a first date? Who are you? The Riddler from Batman. Just, I have a very large family. I have 9 kids.
He's doing it because he is actively trying to obscure the sheer, overwhelming volume of his emotional and logistical baggage.
Yeah.
He knows that dropping 9 kids in a reality show is a massive red flag that will send most normal women running for the hills. So he obscures it. But here's the craziest part of this entire sequence.
I still can't believe it.
Despite all of this, despite the weird math riddles, despite the aggressively tight upside-down triangle shirt, despite the looming, ever-present threat of a Donald Duck impression, the date actually goes, well.
Shockingly well. I was glued to the screen. My jaw was on the floor. Barry was actually holding a conversation. He was asking her questions about her life. He wasn't being overly weird or preaching at her. They really bonded over being gym rats and lifting weights. And Jonah, babes, I swear to you, Jonah was giving him bedroom eyes across the table.
It was deeply disturbing.
She was gazing at him while she drank her iced coffee. She was horny for Plath Daddy. It was undeniable chemistry.
I admit it was mesmerizing television. You could not look away. But we really need to analyze the massive psychological and theological boundary shift happening with Barry here. Did you catch his confessional?
Oh, the kissing thing. He fully admitted that back when he was courting Kim 25 years ago, they had a strict, non-negotiable rule. Absolutely no kissing before the wedding altar. 0 physical intimacy. But now, Barry version 2.0, the divorced gym bro, is officially open to kissing before marriage. Just not on the first date, he clarified.
Growth. We love a personal growth moment, even if it's decades late. But he did make it clear he is still holding the firm, immovable line on premarital sex. He is absolutely not doing that.
Right.
And you have to wonder, Jonah, who has been divorced for 9 years, who drives a convertible, who clearly works out and enjoys her life and independence, she seems like a woman who enjoys the full spectrum of adult relationships. How long is she really going to put up with a completely sexless courtship with a man who speaks in riddles and quacks?
This is exactly the point. Look at the psychology of what Barry is doing here. He is only hearing what he wants to hear. During the date, Jonah admitted that she grew up in the Southern Baptist Church, but she explicitly stated she isn't part of an organized church congregation right now. Which is a big deal for them.
Massive deal. Now let's be real. If she were not traditionally attractive, Barry would have immediately, on the spot, used her lack of church attendance as an absolute deal breaker. He would have judged her harshly. But because she is hot, and because she strokes his ego, he is projecting his entire fundamentalist fantasy onto her.
He thinks he can fix her.
Exactly. He is sitting there thinking, I can lead her. She'll eventually come to my church. She will be molded into exactly what I want. It is the exact same controlling patriarchal tendency he has always had. It's just currently being masked by a first date endorphin glow.
Totally. You could see the wheels turning in his head. He was already planning their spiritual future and how he could lead her. But honestly, the bar is so low for these men. Good for Barry for just getting out of Cairo, sitting in a cafe, and having a somewhat normal conversation. It was miles better than whatever's happening with his ex-wife. Which brings us to the next disaster.
Return the juicer and the child support showdown.
This scene, babes, this was a masterclass in passive-aggressive tactical maneuvering by Kim Plath. She is a sniper.
She truly is.
Okay, let's set the scene for everyone. Barry drives over to Kim's farmhouse, or whatever property she's living on now, for a supposedly amicable co-parenting meeting and the very first order of business. Barry is formally returning Kim's 50-year-old juicer.
We have to stop and talk about this juicer. Why did the producers dedicate so much precious screen time to this specific, ancient kitchen appliance? It has been this weird, recurring mystery all season. Barry claims, on camera, that he never even used it. Not once.
So why did he have it?
Why did he take it in the divorce settlement? Did he take it just to spite her? Was it a hostage situation? I can just imagine the mediation. I get the Cairo house, I get the land, you get the farm, but I am taking the 50-year-old citrus press just so you can't have fresh orange juice. It is so incredibly petty.
It is the definition of petty. They literally sat down at the table. He dramatically handed over this heavy metal juicer. She visibly thanked God that she finally got her juicer back. And then they sit down to actually talk. And at first, it seems completely normal and productive.
Right, they were discussing Ethan.
They are talking about Ethan's severe depression, his struggles with his new girlfriend, Tegan, and how they can support him. They look like a united front. But then Kim executes the ambush.
Kim is a tactical genius when it comes to on-camera ambushes. She is completely weaponizing the reality TV crew. She abruptly, with zero segue, pivots from discussing their deeply struggling adult son directly into a financial shakedown.
It gave me whiplash.
She corners Barry, knowing he cannot yell or argue because the cameras are rolling on national television, and says, "I need to talk to you about child support. You've only been giving me half of what you owe me."
Babes, the way I screamed at my television, she did not care that millions of people were going to watch this. She wanted her money, and she wanted the audience to know he wasn't paying. And Barry's reaction: I have never in my entire life seen a 57-year-old man move so incredibly fast while simultaneously trying to look like he wasn't running away in a panic.
He literally scurried. There was no other verb for it. He scurried. He stood up abruptly, looked out the window at the door, and said, "Well, it's all I can afford. Oh, looks like it's raining. Gotta go." And he just bolted. He power walked out the door and fled into the precipitation.
He escaped. He fled the scene of a financial crime. But babes, we have to talk about the reality of this. He is giving major, flashing red light, deadbeat dad vibes right here.
Unquestionably.
Let's do the math. You are actively paying for a professional matchmaker in Tallahassee to set you up on dates with realtors who drive BMWs. That is not cheap. But when you are sitting across from the mother of your children, you claim you can only afford to pay exactly half of your court-ordered or agreed-upon child support for your minor daughters. Make it make sense.
It doesn't make sense, and it raises a very important structural question about their actual legal financial agreement. Kim stated clearly that the deal was he only pays half of the child support until the big original house in Cairo sells. That was apparently their handshake deal or mediation agreement.
Which is insane.
He pays half now, and he pays the lump sum of the rest when the real estate liquidates. But here's the problem. That massive house has been sitting on the market for over a year.
Exactly. And have you seen the roof on that Cairo house in the establishing shots? It looks like it's structurally caving in. The shingles are curling. You need to swallow your pride, Barry. Lower the asking price, fix the roof, sell the giant empty house, and pay the mother of your minor children what she is owed. I know Kim is deeply messy.
Very messy.
We know Kim spends recklessly. She probably maxed out several credit cards buying those sequin belly dancing outfits and renting the dance studio. But the law is the law. If he owes her the money to feed and clothe those girls, he owes her the money.
It's the glaring hypocrisy that truly gets me. Barry has spent over 20 years presenting himself to his community and his family as this stoic, hyper-responsible, infallible biblical patriarch, provider, the rock. But the absolute second he is confronted with a direct, uncomfortable financial obligation by a woman, his primary coping strategy is literally to run away into the rain. He physically abandons the conversation.
It's pathetic.
Which, ironically, is exactly where Ethan learned his conflict resolution skills. Ethan didn't invent this behavior. He inherited it.
Oh my gosh, that is the most perfect, depressing transition of all time. Let's talk about the prodigal son. Let's talk about Ethan's escape room and the complete postmortem of his relationship with Tegan. Because if Barry runs into the rain to avoid a conversation about a check, Ethan runs into the absolute frozen, unforgiving tundra of Minnesota to avoid a basic human feeling. I am so intensely mad about this entire situation.
The granular details of this breakup are staggering. It is a study in cruelty.
So Kim and Barry are having that conversation before the ambush, and they are discussing why Ethan and Tegan broke up. And Kim tells the story because she was physically there at the grandparents' house when it happened. Let's lay out the facts.
Lay them out.
Keegan, this sweet, seemingly innocent girl who has a young child of her own back home, packs up her car and drives 5 to 6 hours from Wisconsin all the way to Minnesota. She does this massive drive specifically to surprise Ethan for a family birthday party that his grandparents are throwing for him.
It's a massive, time-consuming effort. It requires planning, gas money, childcare arrangements. It is a grand, romantic gesture meant to show support and love for her partner.
Exactly. And how does Ethan, our emotionally evolved king, repay this incredible gesture? Mid-party, the house is full of people. They're having a conversation. Tegan simply asks him what's wrong, or they have some incredibly minor baseline relationship argument. And Ethan looks at her, and according to Kim's retelling, he sees Olivia.
He superimposes his trauma.
He superimposes his trauma from his ex-wife onto his current girlfriend. He panics. His eyes glaze over. He completely neurologically shuts down, and he ghosts his own birthday party.
He didn't just walk into another room to cool off. He didn't step onto the porch for a breather. He left the property. He fled the premises on foot. And the sheer, unadulterated cruelty of what followed is what makes this so dark and unforgivable. He turned off his cellular device for 12 solid hours.
12 hours. Let
Yeah.
that sink in. He left a woman who just drove 5 hours to see him completely stranded and abandoned at his grandparents' house. These are people she barely knows.
It's excruciating.
Can you imagine the psychological torture of sitting on a floral sofa in rural Minnesota, making awkward small talk with Ethan's elderly grandparents, eating stale birthday cake, while your boyfriend has evaporated into the woods and his phone goes straight to voicemail? For 12 hours. What was he doing in the woods for 12 hours?
He was probably just staring at a tree, clutching his thermos, waiting for the feeling in his chest to stop vibrating. It is emotional terrorism. I don't use that term lightly.
Yeah.
He weaponized his absence to deeply punish her for making him feel a negative emotion.
It's so manipulative.
He couldn't handle a basic, introductory-level adult conversation about feelings. So his subconscious strategy was to punish her by abandoning her in a socially excruciating, inescapable situation. It's a power play, masquerading as panic.
I'm so angry on her behalf. I praised Tegan so much when she finally got in her car, drove herself all the way back to Wisconsin alone, and rightfully dumped him over the phone. She had that moment of clarity. She realized, oh my God, this man is an emotional black hole. He will suck the life out of me. He cannot commit to leaving Georgia. He cannot communicate a single thought. And he is an absolute wild card who will leave you stranded. Run, Tegan, run. Block his number.
And thankfully she did. But we need to look at the larger context here. This entire disastrous situation really highlights the stalled divorce with Olivia. Ethan claims, on camera, that he's totally ready to sign the papers, he wants to move on, but that Olivia is the one ghosting his lawyer. He says she is holding up the legal proceedings over clauses about what he can and cannot say about her family in the future on the show.
Do we actually believe that narrative for a second?
I don't.
Because Olivia went on a completely separate podcast a few months ago and explicitly stated that Ethan was the one dragging his feet for over a year. She said he refused to sign anything, he wouldn't read the emails, he was just sticking his head in the sand. And now, suddenly, he meets Tegan, he decides he wants to play house and be a stepdad in Wisconsin, and suddenly is furious that the legal divorce isn't happening overnight. It's so transparent.
Exactly. He only wanted to rush the legal process because he thought he had successfully secured a new, compliant relationship to jump into. Ethan cannot be alone. He doesn't want to sit in a room and do the hard, grueling work of therapeutic healing. He just wants to seamlessly transfer his deep codependency from Olivia directly onto Tegan. He wanted a new mother figure. But Tegan saw the massive, flapping red flags and bolted.
So now the reality is, Ethan is stuck in an empty, depressing, rented house in Wisconsin, wandering around the snowy driveway with his thermos, entirely alone. And he has no choice but to pack up his cars and slink all the way back to Cairo with his tail firmly between his legs. It is bleak, babes. It is an incredibly bleak existence.
It is bleak. It is the tragedy of a man who refuses to evolve. But speaking of bleak family dynamics and the absolute refusal to evolve, we need to talk about the Montana trip. Because the tectonic plates of the Plath family are violently shifting, and the new fault lines that are forming are fascinating from a psychological standpoint.
This segment made me so angry, I almost threw my remote at the wall. Okay, so Kim is in the car with Lydia for an 18-hour drive back down south from the Midwest. And instead of doing what normal people do on a road trip, listening to a true crime audiobook, playing the license plate game, or just staring out the window in silence, Kim decides to use this captive, inescapable audience to stir the pot.
Of course she does.
She starts aggressively interrogating Lydia about what happened on this siblings-only family trip to Montana.
Kim is the ultimate textbook triangulator. Look at the mechanism here. She gets secondhand information from Moriah, and then instead of letting the adult siblings sort it out, she weaponizes that information to confront Lydia in a moving vehicle. She does this purely to generate conflict that she can then position herself in the middle of as the arbiter of truth. She feeds on the drama.
Right. So the accusations finally come out. Zac and Lydia allegedly relentlessly policed Moriah's lifestyle during this trip to Montana. And what were the massive, unforgivable crimes, you ask?
Let's hear the crimes.
Number 1, Moriah had some alcohol in the house while 16-year-old Amber was present. Number 2, Moriah watched a mainstream television show in the living room that had too many F-bombs for Zac's liking. And number 3, Moriah wanted to play a raunchy game of Cards Against Humanity with her adult siblings.
Now, Lydia did attempt to defend herself in her solo confessional. She said that because of Kim's absence, she practically raised Amber, so she feels an intense maternal protectiveness over what the teenager is exposed to. She felt she was just acting out of responsibility. And she also threw some shade, claiming the TV show Moriah put on had more F-bombs in 10 minutes than she hears during an entire week working as a bartender.
I don't care. I am going to go completely off right now. I am fiercely, unequivocally defending Moriah here. Moriah is in her own rented house. She paid for it. She hosted them. She is a 21-year-old adult woman. She generously invited her siblings into her space to bond. If you are a guest in someone's home and you don't like the music or the television show or the card game they are playing, you do not sit them down and give them a youth group lecture on honoring God.
You really don't.
You politely decline to play the game. You say you're tired and you go to your bedroom. Or better yet, if you are that offended, go pay for a hotel. Do not police a woman in her own home.
You are absolutely right. And if we look at the psychological underpinnings of this, it is entirely about control and a desperate attempt to find order in chaos. Zac and Lydia have essentially become the new fundamentalist enforcers of the family. Think about it. When Kim and Barry were raising them, they ruthlessly enforced these rigid, oppressive black and white rules. Now that Kim has completely abandoned those rules to drink wine, wear short skirts, and date a guy named Ken, and the older kids are out living secular lives, nature abhors a vacuum.
Exactly.
The system requires an enforcer. Zac and Lydia have stepped into that void to become the new morality police because those rigid rules are the only way they know how to feel safe.
Yes, they are literally just cosplaying as the new Kim and Barry, and it is so incredibly toxic to watch. Even Isaac, sweet, quiet, minding his own business, peanut farming Isaac, had a visceral, undeniable reaction to this behavior. In his confessional, he absolutely blasted them.
He really did. He was visibly angry. He said that Zac's self-righteous Christian judgment makes him sick. That is incredibly strong, definitive language for Isaac, who usually avoids conflict at all costs. He also revealed a key detail. He said that Zac specifically waited until Isaac left the room to corner Moriah and the younger girls and lecture them. He essentially ambushed the women when the only other adult male wasn't around to push back or defend them.
Which is so deeply cowardly. You want to play youth pastor, Zac. You want to be the spiritual head of the household. Do it when the whole group is sitting there. Stand 10 toes down in your convictions. Don't pull the girls aside and make them feel bad and shameful in their own home when they are vulnerable. So I have to ask you, we need to explicitly discuss this and spiral for a second. Are we completely over Lydia and Zac? Are we fundamentally done with their holier-than-thou attitude this season?
I think the audience is definitely hitting a massive brick wall with them. It is one thing to hold strong personal convictions for your own life. If you don't want to drink, don't drink. If you don't want to curse, don't curse. It is entirely another thing to forcefully impose those convictions on other adults who are graciously hosting you. Isaac completely nailed it when he said they are not anyone's judge. They lack the authority they're trying to wield.
I am completely 100% over it. Lydia was raised in an environment where she was taught to not have a voice, to be meek and submissive. And now that she finally has a voice as an adult, she's using it to parrot the exact same judgment and shame that her parents used to traumatize her older siblings. It's a tragic cycle, but it is exhausting to watch. But speaking of trauma, we have to pivot. We have to move to the heaviest part of the footage. Kim's therapy breakthrough and the revelation about Amber.
This was undeniably the heaviest, darkest part, and possibly the most intense moment in the entire history of the series.
It really was. So Kim goes to a therapist on camera. She goes to Dr. Tai, who, by the way, is the exact same therapist who completely failed to fix Micah and Veronica's absolute mess of a relationship earlier this season, but I digress. Kim sits down on the couch, and we get this deep, harrowing dive into the 2008 tragedy. And I have to pause and soften my tone here because regardless of how we feel about Kim, accidentally running over your own 17-month-old son, Joshua, with a vehicle that is an immense, unimaginable, life-shattering tragedy. No parent, no human being should ever have to live with that specific brand of nightmare. It is horrific.
It is a level of grief and trauma that is almost impossible for an outsider to comprehend. It shatters the psyche. And what we know about this family is that for years, for over a decade, they simply did not talk about it. They repressed the grief entirely. They packed it in a box, shoved it in the basement of their minds, and plastered on a smile for Jesus.
But the specific confession she makes to the therapist here is what truly stopped me in my tracks and made my blood run cold. She revealed that she was actually pregnant with Amber at the time of Joshua's death, and she confessed through tears that she honestly thought this new baby would heal her grief. She viewed the unborn child as a literal replacement.
The clinical term for this dynamic is the replacement child. It happens in cases of severe, unprocessed grief. But instead of healing her, the reality of the new baby just magnified the trauma exponentially. Kim admitted to the therapist that the guilt, the shame, and the pain were so paralyzing that when Amber was finally born, Kim physically couldn't even look her in the eye.
That is just awful.
She couldn't sing lullabies to her. She stated she could only nurse her for sustenance and then immediately hand her off to someone else.
Which means, and this is the part that breaks me, that Hosanna or Lydia, who were just tiny little girls themselves at the time, were probably doing the bulk of the emotional and physical caretaking for this newborn infant. Hearing a mother say on television that she emotionally rejected her infant daughter because of her own trauma, it broke my heart into a million pieces for Amber. Can you imagine being 16 years old, sitting on your couch and watching your mother say on national TV that she couldn't look at you when you were born because you weren't the brother who died?
It is devastating, but, and I know this is going to sound incredibly cynical, this raises a very important, very dark question. While the trauma she experienced is undeniably real, horrific, and valid, we absolutely have to look at Kim's motives for putting this specific confession on reality television right now at this exact moment in time.
Ooh, wait. Okay, I was feeling empathetic, but now I'm intrigued. Say more. Unpack that for me.
Look at the timeline. Why now? She hasn't spoken publicly about the depths of Joshua's death in 8 entire seasons of this show. Why is this suddenly a major storyline? Well, if we zoom out and look at the real-world timeline, just recently, Lydia went on an external public podcast. And on that podcast, Lydia essentially blamed Kim and Barry for fundamentally failing to equip the children to handle the grief of Joshua's death. Lydia bravely said that her parents didn't talk about it, they provided no coping tools, they didn't offer therapy, and that silence deeply damaged all the siblings. Kim is a woman who monitors everything said about her. She is furious about this public critique of her parenting.
Wait, so you think Kim is actively using this deeply emotional therapy session as a calculated PR move to save face?
I think Kim is a highly intelligent, highly manipulative person who understands optics. I think she is weaponizing her very real, very tragic trauma to publicly deflect from Lydia's completely valid complaints. Look at what happened in the session. The therapist directly told Kim, your daughter wants something from you. She is hurting. But instead of doing the healthy thing, which would be calling Lydia privately, apologizing and saying, I failed you, I was drowning in grief, let's go to family therapy together off camera. What does Kim do?
She goes on TV.
Kim goes on a highly rated television show, cries to Dr. Ty, and drops a devastating sympathetic bomb about her trauma with Amber. She does this to garner mass audience sympathy and permanently position herself as the ultimate untouchable victim. It forces the kids to completely back down and stop criticizing her, because in the public eye, her pain trumps their pain.
Babes, that is so incredibly dark. That is Machiavellian. Okay, but as I'm thinking about it, it makes perfect, terrifying sense. She is actively triangulating the television audience against her own children. She gets to look at the camera and essentially say, look at how much I suffered. Look at my agony. How dare Lydia go on a podcast and criticize my parenting when I was surviving this? It completely explains the entire family's severe emotional repression. If the mother's trauma is the absolute immovable center of gravity in the household, there is literally no oxygen left in the room for the children to process their own feelings. Their grief is suffocated by hers.
Exactly. It's a closed, airtight system of generational dysfunction. And it perfectly explains the behavior we see today. It's exactly why Ethan runs into the woods when he feels overwhelmed. He was never allowed to express a negative emotion without it threatening the fragile peace of the house. It's why Moriah aggressively rebels and pushes boundaries. And it's why Lydia becomes a rigid, hypervigilant fundamentalist. She thinks if she just follows all the rules perfectly, the trauma won't happen again. They're all just adults desperately trying to survive the fallout of a childhood where they weren't allowed to grieve.
Wow. Okay, I need to take a deep breath. I need to take a long sip of this slushy because my brain is spinning. We need to lighten the mood slightly and transition into our segments. Babes, it's time for segment 1. Most uncomfortable moment.
There were an unprecedented number of contenders for this category this week. We could have done a top 10 list.
There really were. The cringe was off the charts. But after much deliberation, we had to choose Barry's pickup lines at the cafe. Specifically, the delivery of, hey baby, your hair sure does flow, and of course his literal, premeditated threat to use a Donald Duck voice on a successful real estate agent named Jonah.
The sheer, visceral, full-body, secondhand embarrassment of watching a 57-year-old man who possesses the nuanced social skills of a homeschooled Victorian child who has only read books about farming try to flirt on national television. It was physically painful to watch. My Apple Watch actually gave me a high heart rate alert during that scene.
I have a 3 hypothetical question for you. Put yourself in Jonah's shoes. Could you, as a human being, have survived sitting across a small cafe table from Barry while he contorted his face and made Donald Duck noises at you?
Absolutely not. I would not have survived it. I would have immediately, flawlessly faked an emergency page from the dental clinic. I would have looked down at my phone, let out a dramatic gasp, stood up so fast my chair fell over, and yelled, "Oh my God, a pediatric patient just swallowed a UV curing light. I have to go to the emergency room immediately to surgically extract it." And I was sprinted to my car and sped away.
See, I wouldn't have even bothered to formulate an excuse. I wouldn't have given him that closure. I would have just silently stood up, maintained aggressive eye contact, walked backward out of the cafe, walked directly into the nearest ocean, and started a new life as a mermaid. I cannot handle that specific frequency of cringe. It vibrates my soul in a bad way.
Moving on to segment 2, the Reality Check Award. Of all the delusional people on this show who most desperately needed a reality check this week...
The choice here is glaringly obvious. It's Zac, and by extension his wife Lydia.
Yes. Present the evidence to the jury, counselor. Make your case. The evidence is overwhelming and entirely documented on film. You do not, under any circumstances, go into someone else's rented home, sleep in their beds, drive their vehicle around town, eat the food they bought, and then pull them aside into a corner to sternly lecture them on how their lifestyle, specifically having a standard cocktail and playing a very common party game like Cards Against Humanity, isn't honoring God. It is a fundamental breach of the social contract of hospitality.
It is the absolute height of audacity. It is so unbelievably rude.
And I want to be shady, but I also want to be fair here. I understand that Lydia means well. She practically raised Amber. She's operating out of a severely misplaced maternal instinct because her actual mother checked out. But Zac has absolutely no standing and no right to play youth pastor to his sister-in-law in her own house. He married into this chaotic family. He does not get to dictate their spiritual boundaries or their entertainment choices. He needed a massive, humbling reality check. Isaac gave him a little bit of one in the solo confessionals, but someone needs to look Zac in the eye and say it directly to his face.
Preach. I completely agree. Zac needs to sit down. Okay, segment 3. Who would survive real life? We are going to discuss which cast members would actually thrive, or at least function, outside the highly controlled, isolated Plathville bubble. Who adapts to society and who struggles?
Let's start with who struggles, because that's the easiest answer on the entire board. Ethan. Ethan struggles.
Ethan would perish. He would literally disintegrate into dust the second the real world pushed back on him.
He fundamentally cannot survive real-world conflict. He has no tools. Think about it. If a barista at Starbucks simply got his coffee order wrong and handed him a latte instead of a drip coffee, he would short-circuit, abandon his car in the drive-thru, and run into the nearest forest to hide. When faced with a slightly uncomfortable conversation with his girlfriend of several months, he ghosted her for 12 hours. He has absolutely zero coping mechanisms for the unpredictability and friction of normal human interaction.
Yeah.
He desperately needs the bubble to survive.
I completely agree with that assessment. Now, on the flip side, who adapts? I'm arguing for Moriah.
Moriah? Really? That's a bold choice considering her track record of unpaid bills and dramatic tattoos.
Hear me out. I have evidence. Despite her messiness, and she is undeniably messy, she creates chaos. We know this. She is actually the only one trying to live in the real world. She is actively facing uncomfortable situations. She is moving out on her own. She is dealing with heartbreak. She is paying her own bills. Mostly, she is trying to host her siblings. And most importantly, she is figuring out how to set her own boundaries. When Zac lectured her, she didn't run into the woods like Ethan. She didn't cry and submit like Lydia. She stood her ground in her own home. She's fumbling. She is making mistakes, but she is actively adapting to reality.
You know what? That is a very fair defense. She's the only one actually trying to deconstruct the bubble from the outside rather than just finding a new, equally oppressive bubble to hide inside. I'll give you Moriah. Okay, final segment. Plathville Life Swap. This is where we take the cast members and mentally drop them into completely different, highly specific scenarios.
I love this segment so much. Okay, first scenario up. Which cast member would actually survive being a dentist?
As a dental professional, I have to choose Isaac. Think about the skill set required. He's already a pilot who understands complex machinery. He's a peanut farmer who understands hard labor. And he is a bench maker. He has incredible manual dexterity and patience. He clearly loves working with small, intricate mechanical things. And perhaps most importantly for a business owner, as we saw with that beautiful wooden bench he built for Kim, he works for free. He'd be the absolute perfect, highly profitable dental associate for our future velvet-shared empire.
Oh my gosh, yes. Dr. Isaac Plath, DDS. He would be so gentle with the high-speed drill. The patients would love his calming energy. Okay, next scenario. Who would survive a brutal, freezing Toronto winter?
Oh, this is tough. None of them like the cold.
I have the absolute perfect answer. Tegan.
Tegan, yes, of course.
Think about it logically. First of all, she is already from Wisconsin, so she inherently has the genetic fortitude and the winter coat wardrobe for the extreme cold. But far more importantly than that, she survived the absolute frozen, barren, emotional tundra of a romantic relationship with Ethan Plath. She drove 5 hours through the snow, got ghosted at a party, realized it was a completely lost cause, and dumped him over the phone. She knows exactly when to cut her losses and run back inside to the warmth. A blinding Toronto blizzard would be an absolute breeze compared to surviving Ethan's cold shoulder.
That is a brilliant, airtight analysis. Okay, next scenario. Who would survive a full, uninterrupted week living with your family?
Oh, wow. My family is loud. My family is a lot. There is yelling, there is overlapping talking, there is forced participation in games.
Which is exactly why I choose Jonah, Barry's blind date.
Wait, really? The realtor in the BMW?
Yes. Think about it. Out of everyone we saw on screen, she seems like the most completely normal, well-adjusted human being. She drinks iced coffee. She has successfully survived a divorce without making it her entire personality. She is raising 4 kids in Tallahassee, and she works in commercial real estate. Do you know how much conflict resolution you need to be a realtor in Florida? She deals with crazy demanding people all day long for a living. She could absolutely handle the snark, the sheer volume, and the chaotic dinner table dynamic of a normal family. She would probably thrive and end up selling your aunt a condo.
You know what? You're totally right. Jonah could hold her own at our Thanksgiving table. She'd bring a great dip, too. Okay, last scenario. Who would absolutely unequivocally quit after just one day in the real working world?
I know exactly who you're going to say, and you are correct.
It's Kim. Obviously, it is Kim Plath. The very minute someone in corporate America gave her constructive feedback on a spreadsheet, or a cashier at Target asked her to pay full retail price for something without a manager's discount, she would literally collapse and hide under a weighted blanket in the break room. Or worse, she would demand an emergency all-staff HR meeting so she could play the victim and explain to the CEO how the company's sick leave policies are actually personally victimizing and traumatizing her. She would last maybe 4 hours in a 9-to-5 job before staging a hostile takeover or quitting.
It is so incredibly true.
What?
She is entirely psychologically dependent on being the absolute unquestioned authority in her own manufactured, isolated universe.
Yeah.
The real world requires compromise, and Kim Plath does not compromise.
Exactly. Wow. Biggs, this was a massive, exhausting journey. We have laughed, we have yelled, we have analyzed the depths of human despair. But before we officially wrap up and let you go, I know you have one last, deeply shady thought to completely ruin our day.
I do, and I want the listeners to really mull this over while they go about their week. We talked extensively earlier about Kim's therapy session. We talked about her tearful admission that she couldn't even look Amber in the eye when she was a newborn baby because of her own blinding grief over Joshua. If that is true, if that profound foundational maternal rejection happened at birth, I want you to ask yourself, how much of Amber's current behavior on the show, her extreme, almost militant allegiance to Kim, and her quickness to turn on her older siblings, is actually just a massive lifelong trauma response? Is Amber just desperately subconsciously trying to win the basic affection and approval that she was fundamentally denied the moment she was born?
Oh my gosh, actual chills just went down my arms. That completely recontextualizes everything. That explains so much about Amber's weird and meshed dynamic with Kim. She is fighting a losing battle for a bond that was fractured from day one. I hate that you pointed that out. My heart actually hurts for her now.
It's what we do here. We laugh at the terrible outfits, but we unpack the really dark psychological stuff too.
We really do. Babes, thank the Snark Squad for hanging out with us today. We desperately needed you to get through this one, because this family is a lot to carry alone.
We really did need the support system.
But babes, before we go, we need to know your thoughts. Hit us up online. Are Fraisin wine slushies a work of absolute genius, or are they a dangerous slippery slope? Would you ever, under any circumstances, willingly join a 5 a.m. running club? What would your ultimate green business empire be if money were no object? And most importantly, who do you think needed the biggest reality check this episode? Let us know in the comments.
And please remind them to like, comment, and subscribe, and share the podcast with their messiest bestie who loves a psychological breakdown.
And keep sending your shady, snarky, or stupid stories for us to read on air, because we live for your workplace drama. Stay messy, stay ambitious, and we will see you on the Snark side.